Hey, it's Caroline and Mark again, back in California after our cross-country Tesla 3 road trip here in Palo Alto, California. This tree is El Palo Alto. The whole city is named after that tree. It's a giant redwood tree.
Yes.
We did not the best job of documenting every charging stop. So we drove 3,204 miles, covering 13 states, and we did that in 6 days of driving. One day was down. We had 20 total charging stops. Most were at Tesla superchargers. A couple were at destination chargers at the hotel where they just charge the car up overnight for us. The average of that all ends up being 160 miles between stops if I just the miles divided by 20. The average time we spent at superchargers was 44 minutes, which seems about right. So we'd stop, go to the bathroom, get some food.
Starbucks sometimes.
Starbucks.
Sometimes.
Not a promotion.
No.
And the average charging speed, which doesn't seem to, the math doesn't work out, I don't know why, but hey, 261 miles per hour at the superchargers. And we found that's really dependent. So if you're really low, you get really high charging speeds, and if you're topped up, you get much slower than that. So it's best to kind of, if you want to charge fast, keep driving till the battery is low. Longest distance was 277 miles. That was from Little Rock, Arkansas to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right?
Tulsa, Oklahoma, yes. And range anxiety is real. As your battery turns from yellow to red in the indicator, you're like, oh shoot, I really hope I make it.
Yeah, we had 18 miles left when we got there, and we left with 310, I think. So yeah. It was at about 300 miles of range or so. Total charging cost for the whole trip was $148.18. I call that pretty good to cross the whole country. That's 4.6 cents per mile, which ends up being the same as a gas car getting 63 miles a gallon at the national average gas price of $2.90, which is a bit lower than here in California.
As of August 2019.
There you go. And at home charging tends to be about 50% cheaper than that. So if you drive around the city and charge at home, it's going to be maybe like a 80 mile per gallon car equivalent cost-wise. It doesn't account for the maintenance of the electric car, which is almost nothing. The gas car, 3,000 miles, you're close to needing another oil change on that.
Oh, and we did have to fill up our wiper fluid.
Oh, yeah. We did leave the air conditioning on one night for the birds in the back of the car. It was 86 degrees on average at night in the dark, and I forget, we left it in the mid-70s in there. It ate up 8 miles of range per hour that we had that on. I guess we talked about what we did. How was it? Would you do it again?
I would. I think actually the thing I'd change the most is probably give ourselves a couple extra days, because we went through some pretty cool cities, but ultimately with the time that we had, just we're pretty much driving through them rather than doing a whole lot. Although we did some neat stops, I would go a little bit slower.
I'm not sure if that's a electric car thing or just any car thing. That's
that's
a lot of miles to go.
That's an any car thing.
In any car in that time.
So I guess the big question for us, Mark, is do we think that the T3 is the best road trip car ever?
What do you think?
Well, I liked it a lot. It was really cool and certainly something new. The interior was comfortable. Oh, the map feature was great.
The map is the best map in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, that's
the big screen right next to you, the map is always going. It's great.
I also think if we were a little bit more into entertainment, like podcasts or music all the time, we'd also really like the really good audio fidelity inside the car.
Oh yeah,
and
we
also
had
the entertainment
streaming
system
through the screen as well.
Yeah.
All the time. That was really nice.
Yep. So how about you? What do you think?
I'm gonna say no. I mean, you know, we in Oklahoma, we were scared we were gonna run out of charge.
Yeah,
we did run out of charge. I'm honestly not sure what we would have done. You can get a Prius that costs a lot less money. It's actually roomier. I know, I drive one. And it gets about 45, maybe the new Prius, I don't know, 50 miles a gallon. So overall cost-wise, I think the Prius is less. It can go like 500 miles between fill-ups versus 300 miles for the Tesla. Although the Prius, as much as I love it, is about the most boring car in the world. And the Tesla, much faster, much more fun to drive, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, the steering, especially if you put it in sporty steering, is really nice. There's an article I read how it compares to a Porsche 718, which I think is overstating it a little bit, but it's really fun, and the acceleration is fun. So in terms of having some fun while going cross country, it's great, although granted, a cross country trip most of the time it's just cruise control or just sort of going straight ahead on the highway for hours at a time.
What about the birds? What do you think their favorite car would be?
Definitely the Model 3, or like maybe any Tesla that had the dog mode, pet mode, bird mode, because it was really nice to be able to go in and do all the things we talked about at the rest stops, like getting something to eat or going to the restroom, and knowing that the birds were in a temperature-controlled car, because again, we did this in August 2019, going along the southern route, and the car gets really hot really quickly, like at the petrified forest. It went up to 96 degrees from 75 degrees in about 7 minutes, so we went back and rescued the birds. That was our sort of truncated experience using a charge point charger, which for us was not super successful.
Trunk, no pun intended.
No
at
pun
the petrified
intended,
forest.
At the petrified forest. But the birds are doing great. The birds are currently at Our Feathered Friends in San Diego.
It's like a bird hotel,
yes,
luxury style. We'll get them back, don't worry.
We're getting them back.
So people were asking why we had a run-in with the police.
Yes.
I blame Caroline.
Yeah, so the police, well, I answered in the comments in case anyone wanted to read it. What happened was we were in Birmingham, Alabama, and we had gone into a Tesla supercharger there, which is actually in a pay lot, so you pull the card, and if you eat one of the restaurants there, they'll validate it, but otherwise it looks like you have to pay. Well, anyway, our card was fine, like we didn't spill water on it or anything, and then when we put it in to leave, about 31 minutes after we got there, it just wouldn't work. It said card not working, and so we got a call, or we called into the help and asked the woman who answered if she could assist us, and she said she's going to send someone over, which, I don't know, I've had to do that before, and they can just open it from the central control, but anyway, I guess she's going to send someone over to investigate. So I saw the police officer, and I went over to the entrance of the parking lot and pressed the button and got I tried to get another ticket, and he yelled over to me, "Ma'am, you can't get a ticket unless there's a car there." I'm like, "Oh, well, we're just trying to get out." And he said, and then he came over and asked what was wrong, and we said that we were stuck in the parking lot, and he just opened the gate for us. It was very nice. A little electric lesson from Mark on kilowatts versus kilowatt hours.
Yeah, so people may or may not know what this all means, but well, kilo is 1,000, right? Like kilometer. And so watt is a measure of power, so it's the rate at which you can do things, if you will. And what's interesting is like horsepower you're used to, so the metric equivalent is kilowatts. And that's how fast you can charge your car. Kilowatt hours is an energy, so it's like kilowatt hours is how full is the bucket, and kilowatts is like how fast are you dumping water out of the bucket to make something happen. So if you charge at 100 kilowatts for an hour, you have charged a 100 kilowatt hour battery. Of course, these things don't happen quite at that rate, right? Like I said, when the battery is low, it charges a lot faster, slows down as it fills up. So it's a little harder to do the math in that, but you know, the bigger the number, the faster the charge. Bigger the kilowatt hours, the farther you can go on a charge.
Oh yeah, one of the new things that the Tesla update has is that it smartly senses when you're approaching a supercharger, and it will heat the battery if it's too cold, so that it's the optimal temperature for charging. Good. So clearly there's a lot of factors that go into optimal charging and rates that Mark simplified.
And lastly, the future of EVs. So they're fairly new in terms of the newest generation anyways. We actually went to a museum, Thomas Edison's old factory in West Orange, New Jersey, which is one of the last places he worked. It was at one time a really big factory that made batteries for electric cars. Maybe a little known fact. And he actually had an electric car charging station in his house that you can go see in West Orange, New Jersey. But the Ford Model T apparently came out a lot less expensive, and that dominated, gas cars dominated for a long time. But with this new generation, it's as I'm saying, it's new. So as you imagine, gas cars have only got better over the last 100 or more years, and they continue to get better. It's really amazing. Power goes up, efficiency goes up, all these things. And so electric cars have a long way to go. The charging times are already coming down. New models are coming out with higher voltage batteries that allow them to charge faster, like Electrify America charging networks coming out, which will have it's more than double the power of the current superchargers, except for the Gen 3 superchargers coming out, which also has more power. So Gen 3 superchargers, 250 kilowatts. Electrify America, 350 kilowatts. So that should charge pretty darn fast.
And also too, I felt like the biggest issue with the electric car in terms of doing a road trip wasn't so much the electric car, but the infrastructure and the lack thereof in Arkansas and Oklahoma. And the car itself ran like a dream.
Yeah.
So I think as those networks that Mark's talking about get implemented, it's going to be a much nicer experience. Like if something unanticipated happens, you'll be able to have a lot more places to stop to charge up quickly than you currently do. So, but the car itself I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, no, would I want this car around town? That's another question that's totally separate from a cross-country road trip that many people will never even do in their lives. I'd say, yeah, it's amazing for around town, especially if you own a home or somewhere you can charge overnight. You actually never have to fill her up anywhere. You just do it at home. It's always ready to go in the mornings when you want. And if you have, a commute that's not 250 miles, which most people don't, you don't have to charge every night anyways. And, the electric rates are a lot cheaper. And it's super efficient around town because gas cars are much more efficient on a road, like for a road trip, for example, compared to in town where they're actually pretty poor efficiency levels of gas cars. But electric car is really efficient around town. So that's a really good use case for it.
So I hope you enjoyed taking our trip with us, and if you like the channel, subscribe. Maybe we'll put some more road trips on, and thanks for following us.